Do developers want to be laid off? And do studios want to fail? The answer is yes. Unknown 9 Awakening fell asleep before it could roll out of bed. It has faced a constant stream of layoffs. The studio's future game has cancelled the massive multimedia planning, which included support from comics, podcasts, books, maybe even a show, all cancelled. The studio soon to follow. This is the same story as Concord with their secret level episode and planning for months of high quality cinematics. To give credit, the strategy is fine. Frankly, if I were planning on releasing a big new IP, accompanying it with ancillary media is exactly what I would do. However, a brand new IP with nothing interesting about it, with boring characters with awkward combat, without graphical style, assuming they'd be cultural juggernauts right out the gate, and 2 games do this in the same year, spending hundreds of millions of dollars, both completely bombing to obscurity. How does this happen? BioWare is one of the oldest fantasy studios around, and BioWare Edmonton is about to shut down. This story is stolen by everyone's favorite hack, Jack Chubb, because the people who actually broke the story are unmention-worthy chuds, and the main goal of games journalists is to steal others' credit without mentioning it. Now, if I were to give them credit for their own work, I would surely be blacklisted in the industry. Now, this is what we call journalistic integrity. So holla to Chubby Grubby and the games media on proving your layoffs are one step above completely deserved. BioWare is falling apart, following Journal Darling and major success, Drag Age Veilguard. Get woke, go broke, top the charts, shut down the studio. Meanwhile, the director of the studio roached out and left the rest of the employees to enjoy their layoffs, leaving a tasteful message which read, summarized, my bag obtained, so F all of y'all, I'm failing up to another studio. When I walk in, devs know they're looking for a new job, but any critique and you get the industry blacklist. Now, this person may be failing up to Dungeons and Dragons, but Chubby Grubby hasn't taken credit for the scoop yet, so I'm not allowed to comment. Piece of advice, if you're a dev who actually wants to make a good game and keep your job, if you notice people like this, go to an independent journalist right away. Not the game's media. Those backstabbers work for the corporations. Going to them is like going to HR and then being shocked in 2 weeks when your ass is brought in for a review and put on a performance improvement plan. Ubisoft is shutting down a studio. This is something I could just randomly announce every couple videos and I'd probably be correct. But don't you worry, I'm a journalist, so at least half of what I'm saying might be partially correct. This shutdown is putting 200 people out of work, who are part of the successes of Star Wars Outlaws and Skull and Bones, the first quadruple gay game ever made. Well, wowee, jesters, that's a lot of layoffs and studio shutdowns. Golly gee willikers, the games industry is a rough place, and none of this could have been avoided. Well, sport, it's time to face reality. If these studios had focused on making a good game, hired the best people, tried to make a game gamers would like, instead of one deliberately meant to piss them off, the game may still have failed, and the studio may still have shut down. Yes, it is possible. Sometimes studios, with the best intentions, passion, and skill, still fail. However, by focusing on doing things everyone knows gamers hate, by intentionally antagonizing the audience, by embracing an ideology that forces ugly characters with pathetic personalities and uninteresting character growth, they are guaranteed to fail, even with the lying media trying to prop it up. Everyone knows it. Not the audience knows it. Not the lying journalists know it. Everyone knows it. The devs, the studios, the execs, they are not ignorant. After a decade straight of being caught off guard by public reception, it's time to realize they aren't being caught off guard at all. Feigning virtuous worry for issues that do not matter to you on behalf of people who do not want you speaking for them is the peak example of a social justice warrior's luxury good. The reality is, life is so good for these developers and these journalists that they are not concerned with losing their jobs. They have inheritances. They have governments willing to hand them your money. They have what anyone in the world could easily recognize as privilege. They need $100,000 just to live their lifestyle for a couple months. This is the lifestyle they live. So when the choice is making a good game that sells well and keeps them employed, or inserting their political propaganda and getting laid off, they will always choose the latter. does not make any sense to us. It may even seem unbelievable. But remember, you have seen the games they make. You have seen Veilguard, Concord, Kill the Justice League, Forspoken, Outlaws, Dustborn, Unknown 9. You have seen journalist articles praising these very games. You've seen the 7 out of 10 IGN, Return to Form, absolute triumph, better than the original. Are these games the sorts you can understand, you can relate to? Ever noticed how if you critique one of these games, if you say you dislike the combat, think the lore is being broken, feel like this or that do not fit in the game, you are talking about the video game. Because to you, the video game is a video game, and you are interested in the video game because it is a video game. They respond by calling you an interchangeable set of insults, including the likes of chud, bigot, isphobe, and then they block you. What they don't ever do, is talk about the video game. Because to them, it is not a video game. I want to repeat this because most people do not understand this. To them, a video game is not a video game. It is a platform for their religious ideology. You are not having a conversation with them. You are not thinking about the same thing. Your checklist on a good game includes gameplay, visual style, the story, all in the game. Their checklist is trans, black, lesbian, in a wheelchair, and that's both in the game and the studio people who made it. This checklist for them is more important than anything else. So for the question, why do games devs want to be laid off? Well, they do not. However, they would rather be laid off than create a product which is not smothered with the repugnant belief system. They would rather be laid off than make something good, make something that gamers want to play, gamers want to buy, and gamers feel happy about. And since everyone hates their ideology, their games can only ever fail. And since their games can only ever fail, they can only ever be laid off. This is like saying you want to put your hand on a hot element every day, but you don't want to get burned. In a business, you are constantly in a state of figuring out what works, what does not work. But we've had a decade of the entertainment industry in free fall, repetition, failing over and over, and nobody learning. And even as Ubisoft is on the very cusp of total destruction, even after 10% of the games industry was laid off just last year, the ideology that brought them there is still more important to them than their jobs, than their studios. Even after countless games SBI and consultants have touched bring ruin to studios and their games, SBI retains 30 to 60 studio clients who would rather have SBI in their studio than have their studio survive another year. Even after the Veilguard directly crashed, a multi-decade-old studio that was once at the very top and one of their most beloved franchises, they fail up to another studio that wants to be shut down. They have found out now exactly what causes the layoffs, what causes the game failures, what causes their studios to shut down. BioWare, you knew what would happen. Bandai Namco, you know better than to work with SBI. Wizards of the Coast, you saw a studio collapse and immediately started hiring the people who made it happen. And Ubisoft. Ubisoft. Did I ever tell you what the definition of insanity is? Insanity is doing the exact same fucking thing over and over again, expecting shit to change.